All right, we're good.
And we're live.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we read the prompt here?
Yeah.
It says, discuss ways you believe organizations can prepare leaders at all levels to respond in a crisis. Consider the communication issues faced by BP in the spill and the failures of crisis communication. All right. Well, I think initially, like, considering crises, especially as I was writing my reflection on chapter 12 more than chapter 13, talking about like leader development and leadership development. I was thinking about that as I was like kind of preparing for this discussion, and I think that like ultimately who the leader is going to set the groundwork for what happens in a crisis. So putting that as the base, as the groundwork, like, you know, if the leader's calm and collected, if they are able to lead others to be that way, to work together. So I think, you know, first, it's good for an organization to have a plan in place. I've worked for several organizations who've had a crisis plan in place. Should something happen, like schools, you know, we have fire drills at school, getting ready to prepare for that kind of crises. And I think like the BP oil spill and the communication breakthrough involved in that, like that wasn't about having a fire drill, for sure. And I think, you know, if leaders of organizations have, if there are guidelines in place even for how these kinds of things can be disseminated and communicated, like what we're going to do, then when a crisis happens, they can fall to the guidelines. It's so much easier to think through those things when you're not in crisis mode. When you're in crisis mode, you forget about things that are important. So it's important to do those things before you get to crisis mode.
Well, it's kind of like feeding off what you said. Business continuity plans are something that I think every business should have. I mean, when you walk into a company, you kind of need to know, all right, it's no different than the fire escape, the fire alarm. What should it go off? You need to kind of know what to do.
Yeah.
Like you use the term, you know, is there a fire, or, you know, are you preparing for a fire? Well, the problem is you have to, as a company, you have to be prepared for any potential loss, any potential lawsuits. I mean, there's just so many different, you know, types of possible danger signs that you, if you're proactive about it, then you can hit it head on. And kind of like with the BP, you know, notifying the public and making sure that people are aware it's better than finding out after the fact. It's no different than if you find out that somebody, a good friend of yours, has lied to you, or when you find out after the fact, it doesn't really mean anything when they're forthcoming about it. So it's just being prepared and making sure that the individuals you're leading are prepared as well. So
Yeah. I think
when people find out after the fact, it's you almost feel like they're sorry they got caught rather than they're sorry for what happened.
Right.
Yeah, kind of just adding to that, I think that I guess in the terms of leadership, it's that's one of the characteristics that makes a leader like so good is being able to like have just always like scanning eyes, like looking at the organization and seeing like where it's prone, like where its weaknesses are, so that it can, you know, prevent those crises from happening. So I think that for some leaders, their strength is in the actual preventing, putting in like in systems to be able to, you know, in the event of this happens, then this, you know, this is the protocol type of thing. And then other leaders have kind of like that pressure, like that's where they really shine also, like in the middle of crises, like that's where they're able to kind of keep a cool head and, you know, remain calm in whatever's going on, and be able to execute without having like, you know, just misjudgment and like going all crazy and like that type of stuff. So I've definitely seen like both sides of leadership, like in previous jobs that I've had or whatever, like volunteering that I've had. It's, you see there's people that are like so focused on putting things in place before they happen, and then other people aren't so good at like being able to prevent, but they're really good at being able to manage in the middle of crises. So I think both of them are like really strong in like leadership, and can be like a part of, different leadership styles.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like at the end of the chapter where it talks about in extremist leadership, where like the leaders are the ones in the like life and death situation. Like some people really shine in those, and some you have to have a certain type of personality and leadership skill to be in a position like that, to think rationally in situations that involve somebody else's life essentially and your own. And I think in that concept, being able to communicate under the pressure is also really important, because I mean, we can all sit in meetings and they're like, oh, if there's a fire, you pull the fire alarm and then you use the fire extinguisher, which is great just to talk about in a meeting. I mean, and some people, that's really great. That's where it's at. But to be able to in the moment know, okay, logically, I'm gonna go pull the fire alarm, I need to tell so and so to get out of the building, and then use fire extinguisher, is two different type of personalities and two different type of communication styles completely.
Yeah.
Yes.
That makes me kind of think about when you kind of are doing your whole planning of your whole business concept or what you're doing. Every goal and everything that could happen, you have to plan in all those contingencies. So you have your plan B, you have your plan A, probably your plan C, D, E, all the way down, because if you're not prepared, like all of you are saying, then you could possibly take the flight or fight type of situation. And obviously you want to go fighting because you could get in a really bad situation.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the biggest things I saw, at least from like using the BP oil spill as an example, how much they ignored the signs leading up to the trouble.
Yes.
And that's one of the biggest things I think a leader could have, is just knowing the danger signs, as the chapter would say. And when something just doesn't seem right, and connecting with the people who are, part of the organization, so they would know when something's not right. Overconfidence and, inadequate safety procedures like the BP. A lot of times people get comfortable and they just pull their focus onto something else. And that's really when more likely, something bad is going to happen. And I feel like if they're able to effectively at least notice when there's these signs, they're able to actually, proactively fix it a lot easier.
I think some of that is like project management 101, like anticipating problems in case those problems should occur. Like BP, their business is oil. They should have had a plan for if an oil spill occurred, not only just how to manage stopping the oil spill, but how to deal with the public even. That they should have had a plan.
I think they really failed at that. They really failed at communicating with the public, even a sense of regret and like, oh, it was all after the fact. It was like, oh, well, this happened, ... Oh, by the way, we're sorry. It wasn't like there was no remorse.
They started out by blaming other people for their problem.
Well, because they got caught. It wasn't genuine anymore. Oh, hey, we killed a bunch of animals. We killed ocean. They didn't care. They didn't care. They probably never would have said a thing.
And they even did pre-testing that all failed. And because they ignored the testing of those results, led to, 11 deaths of their own workers, and not just, the wildlife. So to me, that just showed a real lack of even for their own employees. And I feel like that would, reflect very poorly on, future. Like, why would you want to work for a company who has no respect for you as an employee? You're that expendable that they can fail safety tests and they'll still put you out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah, I think that's.
Somebody even set a timer when we started this.
Yeah, we're
No,
good.
we didn't. But yeah,
We
we're
have
good.
about 2 more minutes that we would need.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Just
What was
highlight
that?
the like types of crisis, because I thought some of those were really interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not the types that you would think of necessarily as being a crisis. Like when I think of crises, I think of natural disasters, or in America, I think of somebody coming in with a machine gun and trying to mow everybody down, like big, like major things. You don't think about like economic or
The public
or,
perception one, I don't really think of as much.
Yeah.
but I think those are just
Like
as big. Consider them.
Yeah.
I think they all have different type of impact, and I think
Yeah.
especially like there's a lot that could happen. There's like several that could happen together that could have like devastating effects on a company. Like if you have like an economic and a public perception and like an industrial,
Another, yeah.
like that's, I mean, that could end a company.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it's just overlapping. Then you have too many things for once you hear too many things bad about something, you're no longer interested, regardless.
Well,
Yeah, it creates like a snowball effect, you know, when one thing just kind of it gets bigger and bigger and bigger if you're not managing the crisis like well enough, you know.
when when the public can't trust your organization, they're going to stop bringing you business, and then you fail to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it actually, like, I don't know, this kind of like makes me like reminds me of like Chipotle. I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago. Like, yeah, a lot of people, not a lot of people, but some people died.
I still eat there 3 days a week.
Yeah, like some people even died, but they were like, it's just amazing how they were able to turn around and really, because that could have really killed the company. Like, definitely, like things happened like back after back, you know, like back to back.
Yes.
And it was like really, really bad for them. And I remember like Chipotle's kind of being dead for like maybe a few months, but like I remember like they were like actively trying to bounce back from this, and now it's like nothing ever happened.
But they were quick. They removed the pork from their restaurant.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what you need. You need them to take action. Not, oh, let's do some testing and see how many more people die.
Yeah.
Let's just remove, remove the subject, and then let's start over. So.
Yeah. They probably had a plan in place for that too, right?
Yeah. Right? Bad meat, bad food. I mean, yeah, it's going to happen anywhere. You just don't want it to happen like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.